Here we go. We finally get to sit down.
It's a long overdue, man, for sure.
That's definitely. Well, I appreciate you for, having me in your beautiful studio.
Yeah, of course, man. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, it's crazy. We never sat down as far as like just kind of having a conversation. This is why I've been really excited to just sit down with you because we go all the way back.
I think it was like 2017.
Yeah,
man.
2017, but we're really interlinked past that point or either further past that point when it comes down to, where we got our stomping grounds as far as sales, at least for me. But as far as network marketing, like when did you discover network marketing? When did Jesus discover network marketing?
Dude, I was like 17.
Yeah.
And it happened in a really ironic way too, because it wasn't like I was actively looking for anything like that, but I had applied to work at a yogurt shop, bro. It was my second job ever. Mm-hmm. And the manager that I applied with, he like, I guess I stood out to him the most with like how creative I was with my resume because I had a little business card because I was flipping shoes at the time.
Yep.
And he was just like, hey, man, I have this opportunity that I want you to check out. And I was like, yeah, sure, man, because I obviously had no idea what he was talking about.
Right.
Then
super discreet.
Yeah, super discreet, man. Like no details of anything. Like he's just like, hey, come through this event. It's going to be awesome. We're going to share details with you, whatever. But I came through, man, and the first event I ever went to was this dude, Alex Morton. He was speaking, and just the cadence of how he spoke, bro, and how passionate he was about what he was speaking about. Like I was hooked.
That's definitely. That's kind of similar how it happened to me. I was in high school, and we're going to tie this all in together as far as everything goes. But I was in I just graduated high school, got to college, went to community college, and the kid in front of me became friends with him. His name was Eric. And then randomly he was like, hey, you want to learn how to make some money? And then and I asked him what, and he didn't want to tell me. And then he made it sound super excited, but it was super discreet. And then later on that night, he said, just come to this place if you're going to come. But it was like this big, I remember it being this big, daunting, task of like, should I go? Like, it seemed like I was like called to go. I was sitting on the couch, laying down, and then I'll never forget. I still got the picture of like the first event that I went to, but it was somebody, it was in Michigan coming from Arizona, which is where I live now, where we're at right now. And then it was Eric Schultz, and he was a diamond leader, I think. Where he got the company car, he sold the whole opportunity. He was,
what's funny, man, is so life has a funny way of coming full circle because obviously, like you just talked about Michigan and Arizona, and you're here in Arizona now.
Yeah.
So the CEO of Vima was actually here filming in the studio yesterday, and he was also here a couple of weeks ago. But I'm like, man, it was so crazy how things come full circle, bro. It's insane.
Yeah, and that's why this is so beautiful, and this seems like it's been right to do it. Like it just seemed like it's been destiny because I like this. I've been recently saying as we've all been elevating all my friends, any of my acquaintances, my family. It's no longer, I'm not surprised. It's the expectation,
For sure.
Especially when you become more and more intentional, like us interjecting back into each other's lives. I'm not surprised that we're doing it, but sometimes you can only just look and like, wow, like it's just crazy how small it works. Because I think I saw a few weeks ago, he was here, BK. I don't know when it was, but I did see that when he was here, and I was just like, that's crazy that you're working with them.
I think you're spot on when you're working and you're operating in a certain way. Like you attract certain people into your life.
Yep.
That are on that same frequency that you're on. So the beautiful thing about that is like I think no matter what journey you're on, if someone's working the same kind of way that you are, you could not see them for like a whole 5, 6, 7 years or whatever, but then you guys cross paths and you're like, oh, bro, I see you and I respect you because you've been putting in the work to kind of do the same thing that I'm doing, and it's cool, man. I think a lot of people are like, it's lonely when you get to the top, but it's only lonely if you don't, if you're not intentional with your friendships along the way, because there's a lot of people building, man. There's a lot of people trying to do something, and I think that if you surround yourself with the right kind of people, it just makes the journey a lot more enjoyable.
100%. You got to make sure you got to learn how to identify it. Like you have to become it. And then once you become once you become the standard that you want to be, then you learn to identify more people like that.
100%.
So I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. And not even this, I don't want to make this more so a preach, but it's something I always get in terms of conversation. Cause like, I feel like we never lost a beat. Like we were saying, like
100%.
We've seen each other from afar. We see people we've been working on stuff, but we haven't necessarily talked all the time. Might have been a DM there, maybe a brief conversation there. And then
I think those are the friendships that work the most though, man. Because I think so many people especially people who are a little bit younger or a little less mature, they think, oh, I have to talk to this person or these people every single day. But I know that for business, man, it's like I have people in my life that I haven't talked to, like you, who I haven't talked to in a while. But it's like you reconnect, bro. It's like nothing ever happened because there's that mutual respect of like, hey, bro, I see you. You're putting in the work in, you know, vice versa. You're looking at me, and it's like, obviously, whatever you need, I'm here. But I think that's a huge misconception with like friendship is like you have to talk every single day.
Right.
And I just don't. One, I couldn't do that, bro. Like just from like all the different things going on. So like it just makes no sense, you know. But I think if more people understood that, they'd have healthier relationships because there's no expectation of like, oh, I've got to text you back here or there. Right. And like I think it just provides for a better foundation.
100%. Like I'm right there with you when you said that, like, because the first thing that comes to my mind is when people don't get a response from you, but they know that we're busy, and it's, you know, it's that spoken word.
For sure.
It should always be there. But to kind of segue really quick, what would you say, what were some lessons that came from 2022? Like what's something that sticks out in your mind?
I think for me, bro, 2022 was interesting because I kind of pivoted my offer, right? Where I got to a place where agency was doing well, right? There's months where it was really good, some months where it wasn't as good, but for the most part, you know, like I was like, okay, I was kind of in a groove, but I realized really quickly, man, that it's like I wasn't exactly enjoying what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest lessons for me from 2022 is like I kind of had to sit back and be like, hey, yeah, I'm not going to take on as many projects, but sometimes you've got to slow down to speed up, which is something that my mentor Matt says all the time, because like if we're always go, we never get to see where it is that we're going to if we're not careful, right? So you lose the forest inside of the trees. For me, like just being able to slow down a little bit, I've been able to kind of identify like, hey, what kind of lifestyle do I want to live, right? Like what kind of business do I want to build? Because I think a lot of creatives also build a business that's completely reliant on them. And if you love what you do, man, it's great. But I think if you get burnt out and there's way too many clients and like you just aren't, you know, taking the time for yourself either, it's a sinking hole that can sink you pretty quick, you know? Right. And I think that's where I found myself, where I was like, man, I really got to figure out what it is and how it is that I want to build this business. And for me, I realized I'm like, I actually want to build this into a system, a process, you know, have a whole team, not be the one, like be the owner, but not be the one fully in it. So I can focus on the stuff that I do want to do, but still have something that's cash flowing and makes sense because, you know, there's a whole system and a team and processes built out to where it's like, I can remove myself from the business.
I'm right. Yeah. That's exactly where I'm at as far as with my business and everything. Not being individually focused or being individually running through the business, but more so system. Correct. A system runs the business as opposed to feeling like you're just running through, you know, the motions. And you're like, how can I get out of this hamster wheel? Like, okay, made money, making money, okay, but how can I not have this revolve around only me? How can I delegate? Like, what's the book I just started reading? Shout out to Patrick. It's Buy Back Your Time. I don't know.
Buy Back Your Time? No.
Okay, by Dan Martell, but that was the book that I recently read. But that was my theme going in 2022 to kind of go off what you're saying. It's just, how can you buy back your time as opposed to just specifically being the person that is making the money as opposed to putting other people in power?
Well, I think at that point, bro, it's like, especially in the beginning, you're buying yourself a job, right? And I think that's where people, if they're not careful in business, it becomes a job. Yeah. And that's exactly what you escaped from doing, right? Yeah. And it's like, yeah, the work, the flexibility is a little bit better, but if you're not careful, bro, like you literally are in a job again and you're actually making less money, especially in the beginning, working more hours and killing yourself. And you're like, man, why is this not working? But it's because you don't have the systems, the people, the processes, the product. And like, if you don't have that long-term vision of like where it is you're going, it's very easy to like, for most people, you know, because they say most businesses don't survive past year 5. Right. And it's true because, you know, people look at it and they're like, well, I'm making less money, working more hours. Like, what am I doing? Right. You know? So I think segueing on to a different thing is like, you have to have a different kind of skin for this game, because I think if you can't take hits, if you can't, you know, be with times where you're not going to be making as much money, or you're going to have to figure out where your next dollar is coming from or whatever, then entrepreneurship would be very difficult for that person, because like I said, you have to have a different kind of skin to be able to tolerate, you know, months where you're not making money, or months where you are making money, but then like the whole business is falling apart, you know, because you don't have the right like structure in place, which is something that it's a whole nother topic. But if you scale too quickly, man, like you can burn your business very fast. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you dove into ChatGPT at all?
A little bit, not too much.
Okay.
I use it more for inspiration, if anything.
Inspiration, yeah. That's kind of the avenue I was looking into, because I've talked to a lot of people that are in the space, or at least I've been recently following a lot of people. But a lot of people, just in any and every industry, a lot of people don't necessarily know what the unknown is. But going to your point, you know, you got to be able to take the punches that come along. Like you have to be prepared for, you know, the unexpected as far as when business and life happens. And if you can kind of have that mentality, like you said, zero expectations. Like I have a zero expectation for just a mentality. Everything that comes through is, you know, is a bonus, I like to say, to an extent, because there is certain expectation you want to hold. But when it comes to just relationships with people, like you kind of have to create a zero expectation, because like I can't control
100%.
what you do, vice versa. A client, you know, what they want, what you think they need to do versus what they want to do, because they want to hold this perception, but you're like, I know this is going to help you, but now you're in the middle.
Yep. I think the biggest thing with that too, man, is that like, so there's zero expectations, right? But I think when you can find joy in all of the bad things that do happen, that's when you kind of unlock a new level of yourself, because you're like, oh, client's acting this way, you know, spouse is acting this way, you know, my kids are acting this way, whatever that thing might be for that person. It's like you start to find joy in it, man. You start to look at it differently, where it's like, oh, it's not happening to me, it's happening for me. So it's easier to tolerate that way. So like you said, you know, I think there's two sides of that. It's like there's zero expectations, right? Where it's like, hey, I'm not going to expect people to act a certain way. But when they act a certain way that doesn't fall in line with what I think is appropriate, like I'm not gonna take it to heart, you know, because maybe from what I found, bro, is a lot of people, you know, we're very, like, human beings are very unpredictable, right? Like very emotional people. We make decisions not based off logic, but based off emotion.
Right.
So you never know what someone's feeling. You never know what they're going through. You never know what they're carrying. So for me, like what's helped me give a lot of empathy towards people is like, I kind of put myself in their shoes, and I'm like, yo, if I'm going through what they're going through, like, why would I be feeling what they're feeling, right? So if someone's like going crazy, going off, whatever, it's like, okay, is there something going on here that I'm not aware about? Because if you see someone like, for example, at Starbucks who gets pissed at somebody who gets their $5 order drink wrong, there's something way deeper going on.
It's not even personal.
No, man, they're just the punching bag that gets that end of that, you know. But they could, you know, somebody could have died, their spouse could be doing something, like they could have cheated. There's just so many complicated emotions when it comes to people, man, that I'm like, I've learned not to judge, because it makes existence a lot easier, where I'm like, okay, cool, you're acting like an asshole, like I get it, I'm not going to tolerate it per se, like I'm going to have a very discerning boundary with that, but I'm also not going to like go after you or attack you, because it's like two people attacking, it's not going to solve any sort of problem.
Right, you're not going to let it affect you, and almost most importantly, take away energy away from you, unless it's like a direct threat to you.
Correct. Yeah, man, and that's a different story, right? That's when it's like fight or flight. It's like, all right, do I step up, or, you know, do I like whatever? But I don't know, man. I think as men, and this is obviously a whole different topic than like creative,
which is fine.
Yeah, man.
This is like, again, to go back into it now that we're face to face, like voice production, like the base is like, it started with media, but like we have the network side of things, we have the media side of things, but like when it comes to just being a voice of production, like you guys put this together to maybe, I want to talk about like 75 Hard, like that's a voice of production, and I'm sure that's done a lot for you to give you more
game changer,
just more wherewithal to just proceed with other things in your life. So it's not like, I want you to see the voice of production, like shout out to Patrick or David. This is how I essentially see what VOP is. It's a representation of the voices of production, from the media side of things to people that are, most importantly in this case, let's say, using media to, you know, move themselves along, whether it be their journey. So it isn't just media. Like this is not a just media podcast. It just so happens to be, it's driven by a lot of individuals creatives, behind the production of things in terms of cameras.
I think when I heard you say the voice of production and the meaning behind that, I loved it, because I think a voice is the most powerful thing that you can have, right? And when we can understand how to use our voice and be okay with like sharing our thoughts, that's when we become limitless. Because I feel like a lot of people are very scared to kind of share what's going on in their mind, right? Like whether they agree with something or disagree or whatever it may be, right? But I think when you can use your voice to just impact and amplify whatever it is that you want to share, right? Whatever's on your heart, as long as it's positive and it's going to help people, like, bro, that's what we're meant to do on this earth. We're meant to create, we're meant to share, we're meant to voice our opinions, you know, we're meant to have something. So kind of going back, and I appreciate you saying that, is like with men, bro, I just think men have to be better men. And I think there's a very flawed interpretation, in my opinion, of what a man should be, where it should be like masculinely, you know, overly like alpha male, which I understand, right? But also overly feminine, which is like not, it's a happy medium, bro. You gotta be like for me, I think it's like a gentle warrior, right? It's like, yo, you're chilling, you're calm, but if shit goes down, like, you know how to kick it on, you know? Because I think that
was a fire rhyme.
Yeah, bro. I wasn't even trying to. That's the best part, you know? But I don't know, bro. It's just crazy. Like when you look at like the polarities of like masculine, feminine, like there's a lot to unpack there, bro. And I think for anyone listening to this podcast, I think it's important for them to understand the dynamics of how a man and a woman can have both, right? Because I think a lot of women from like what my female friends have told me, they're usually in their masculine, bro, because they don't trust a man who's in his like feminine, right? Or whatever. So there's this whole duality going on that no matter if you're a man or a woman, like you're experiencing kind of both. And it's important to like understand both as you're navigating like the social sphere.
No, I've been on a journey, like especially over the past few years, like from my relationship with my family to being in relationships. Like I've been on a journey of trying to just decipher it. And for disclaimer, these are perspectives. These are perspectives.
Their opinions.
They're perspectives, and you do what you want with the perspectives. These may or may not be the perspectives for you. That's what I like to say. And so I've definitely been on the journey, but yeah, there's not a lot of people that have certainty in their path. And so it's another reason why this is so exciting to document the process, whether it be us just having a conversation, talking about our trials and tribulations. See, that was just an unprompted rhyme. But this is what's going to help. I know for a fact it's going to help people figure out what direction they need to go, whether it be, as long as they're going into a direction, because at the same time, no decision is also a decision. And so we can move people away from being indecisive. It's one thing that I've been working on myself as a human being, especially when it comes to business and making decisions and closing the deal and putting other people in power, is to be decisive and to stick with that, and also be agile enough to pivot.
I think it's just a balance, man.
Yeah.
I think you're right on the money though. There's times where you have to be like decisive, right? Because you have to be strong in your decision and like follow through. But you also have to be flexible enough to understand, like, oh, I'm gonna change the plan as I need to. Of course. So I think the cool thing about life is that no matter what you're looking at, it's never black and white. And I posted on my Instagram like 2 days ago because I think there's a lot of gray in life. Of course,
there's no black and white. There are black and whites, but like I look at it as Bruce Lee saying, you know how he says, "Be water." You
gotta flow.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's a great point, bro.
What does he say? He said you can. He said water. I forgot exact saying, but he said you can float or you can crash. Be water, my friend. I don't know. This is the way he said it was just fire. But no. I definitely agree. Like you just have to be agile. And I was listening to Jocko Willink.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
he's constant fire.
Yeah, I love. It's funny. I was reading one of his comments because I was looking at one of his snippets, but somebody said in the comments, it's like, listen to Jocko's like ASMR because he's got that very distinct voice. He's like, the way you do it. But long story short, I say this, it was interesting, and I was like, that's an interesting way to take it, because I don't consume things to get an affirmation of my opinion or what I think. It's more so I'm at a point in my life where I'm consuming things and I'm playing with both sides as far as just being devil's advocate, because you gotta that's part of just being that agile, being water.
Bro. It's huge.
Not to consume it as like, this is yes, this is 100% no, whatever. But he says, let me say the whole thing. He said to show your emotion like you're showing your cards. So if I say something you don't like, and then you show me how that makes you feel, you're showing me your cards. Not to say you're not going to necessarily feel it, but to the ability to consume something, and then despite what it might feel in the room, and to hold that ground and not letting that person or the enemy, he says, to know immediately. It's like it's a defense as opposed to being a vulnerable in terms of showing how you necessarily feel in that time and moment. And I thought that was really interesting.
No. I get what you're saying, because I think a lot of so this is again just an opinion, but I think a lot of men in general are very emotional, which is kind of funny to think about, because I think you would normally think like women are emotional, right? But I think 100%, bro. If someone's not able to sit with their emotions, which is what my mentor Nick taught me, he's like, you want to always sit with your emotions, right? If something provokes you, angers you, pisses you off, whatever, like sit with it and process it instead of just lashing out. I think a lot of men don't do that. And for that reason, that, like you said, they show their cards because it shows kind of where they're at in their process, right? Because, someone who's emotionally aware is going to take some time to be like, oh shit, okay, you're coming at me. I'm meeting you with kindness, right? Like I'm meeting you where you're at, but I'm not letting it escalate. I think what Jocko, it's a respect to Jocko for saying that, because I think it's true, man. Like once you're aware of the fact that you can process these emotions, right? Because I think feeling is good, right? Like you've got to, as a person, you have to feel things, right? I think sometimes what people get misinterpreted is that you shouldn't feel things as a man, right? Or like you shouldn't show any sort of emotion. I think that's false. I think
You feel everything.
yeah, bro, you feel everything, but you process everything accordingly, and then you react accordingly, right? But it's like you're more so being proactive instead of reactive. You're like allowing yourself to assess what the fuck's going on instead of just jumping right into it, which can get you into some problems, right, dude? Because if like someone starts talking shit to you at a bar, you know, and you're immediately gonna jump in instead of trying to process the situation of what the fuck's going on, like, are there times where you should get into a fight? Yeah,
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's times where you're gonna have to figure out what to do given the scenario. But those are very much so one-off. But if someone's able to provoke you to the point where you get into a fist fight with them, and then they have nothing to lose, but you're over here building your $1 million business, like it makes no fucking sense for that person to get into a fight. But a lot of people, you know, because they don't always work on their emotional intelligence on the path and the journey, and they come upon money very fast, you know, they make these mistakes at a further point in their path financially, right. So it fucking wrecks them and snowballs them in an opposite path. So I think what I really want people to understand who are a little bit, you know, younger in their process or in their journey of entrepreneurship, doesn't matter the age, but if they're younger in the process of it, it's like whatever you're going through, like really feel it. You know what I'm saying? Like really embody what it is you're going through, because the lessons that you're able to absorb now, and if you're able to absorb them fully now, that means that when you get to the point where you have the money, the cars, the house, the whatever, you're good. You know, emotionally, you're good. Those things don't need to fill that gap because you understand like where it is that your foundation comes from.
100%.
You know?
Yeah, I definitely 100% agree. And this is why this is so important, because it's not about whomever, it's not to consume something, whether it be this podcast or somebody you go on the internet, like, there's a lot of people that don't have that guidance, but hearing a perspective like, you know, Jesus or Shawn, you know, or Jeremiah, whomever, that can help them make a direction of what they should do with their current situation. And that's why this is so exciting for me to just going down this list and share, you know, trials and tribulations, successes, not just what it looks like, you know, at the end of the rainbow, but more so showing what it took to get there.
Dude, those are if you think about a story though, if you think about any story in general, movie, story, whatever, right? A book. Mm-hmm. The hero's journey, bro. The hero's journey is you have to go through shit for it to even be interesting. Right. So if you were to transport someone on page 1 to like page 100, right, without giving any context of what the character did in between, it's not even engaging because you're like, okay, I don't want to look at someone who went from 0 to 100 like that. You know, I want to relate to someone who understands the depth of their journey, their process, the walk, and who's able to fully understand how it is that they got there. Because I think that's the thing too. No matter what we go through it for a reason so we can help other people get through it. You know, so all those bad things that might be happening to someone right now listening to this podcast, right? Understand that those are building you. They're not breaking you. You know, they're allowing you to understand what it is that you're going to use for someone else to get through that little situation you're going through too. Because, dude, like, I have friends who've gone through some shit, like some really across the board, like some crazy stuff. But I've always found that, like, once they accept it, right? They're like, hey, this happened. And then they fully embrace whatever it is that happened. Bro, they're able to help so many people because that's why I think we go through things. Not to say that everything that bad that happens is like predestined or whatever, right? No. But it's more so like once you understand that you can use anything that's bad for good, that's when you're like, oh, okay, I'm unlocking a different level, you know?
No, it sharpens your sword, and that is it's so important to bring it, especially when you're on top of the mountain, because there's so many people that have success, but they've received a bunch of success, but they haven't endured anything that's needed for them to build character. A lot of people live with life, but nowadays with the internet, which is a beautiful thing, like I know people making money, you know, when I was 21 versus when they were 21 or 20 or 19, you know, I didn't have nowhere near the money, but I've gone through, let's just say.
Dude, fast success builds ego, slow success builds character. 100%. That is one of my favorite sayings because it's so true, man. And it's spot on to what you were saying, right? If someone at 21 years old gets all that money so fast, sometimes I've seen from my personal experience, it can wreck them. Yeah. Meaning they're driving the car they want to drive, living where they want to go, doing whatever they want to do, but because they don't have the emotional like regularity, I guess you can say, to process where they're at in their journey and like those lessons that for someone like me and you who's kind of gone through a different path of failure and success and whatever has happened in those paths, it's a little hard for them to process that because they also feel a little isolated, right? Because there's not, like those things are amazing because they happen more often now with the internet, right? But they're not 100% common, right? So it's like they sometimes feel isolated. They don't know who to reach out to, what to do. So sometimes it sends them backwards. But it's just interesting, man, because I think everyone has their own walk, you know? And those people also have a very fascinating story because, you know, if you do have that story where you get success very quick and then you go back and then things kind of fall apart and then you're able to pick yourself back up and get even further, it's a hell of a story, bro.
No, 100%.
You know? So, and like, I think I don't know if it's Brad Lee or one of those guys had something like that happen, you know, where they got everything, they lost it all, you know? And that's a very humbling moment because I've had that happen to me with e-com, like where I was up and then shit hit the fan, man. And it's interesting because it makes you really, I think I had an appreciation for people and for things around me, but like I have a much deeper appreciation for the little things in life now because I understand like the juxtaposition of those two areas, right? Where it's like super wealth and it's like poverty. So it's interesting, man.
Oh, 100%. Are you comfortable talking about that?
Of course, bro. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I gotta make sure. I usually ask, but you know, as far as that, because I remember that was like a big thing in your life as far as that rise. And then, you know, it was a very unique situation that you dealt with as far as relationships, you know, figuring out how to build a business. You know, I've dealt with a lot of that, but I was just curious, like how does that moment in your life, what happened and then in terms of as far as what you're comfortable with sharing, and then how's this moment defined in your life? Like, how do you look at it now that that's happened?
So different thing, but Michael Jordan has this pack, right? Defining moments pack. It's a sneaker. For me, like that was a defining moment in my life, bro, because it was a very character building moment, right? Where I basically like what happened. I went from working a corporate job where I was making, you know, like $55K a year, and I left that job and then started an e-commerce business. And this doesn't happen regularly, right? Like most people who start an e-com business, this doesn't happen to.
Yeah.
But dude, I built I filmed the creative, I got the product, I did everything, I built the landing page, I ran the ads, I did from start to finish, did everything, right?
Yep.
And that store ended up doing like what I made in a year in a month.
Yeah.
So it completely changed my perspective on money. It completely changed my perspective on like business and opportunity on life, dude.
Changed forever.
Yeah, man, because things don't seem real at that point, you know. Yep. So I was like, yo, this is insane. This is crazy, you know. Like my brain's like open to so much right now. So it was wild. But the thing is, because of, you know, long story short, what happened was I had a really winning product, right? It popped off like crazy. I launched my store in Chinese New Year. For anyone watching, do not launch a store in Chinese New Year. It's the fucking worst. Because people in China, bro, they take basically like a month off. Oh. So my lead time on my product was ridiculous, bro. Like
more than 30 days?
More than 30 days, 100%. And so I and this is a whole different story. Yeah, like same story, but like different. Yeah. I was emailing customers, bro. Like every day for like a good 4 or 5 hours, just email them back and telling them like, hey, you know, I'm so sorry. We're going to take care of this. We're going to send you a couple extra products, you know, just to make up for it, whatever. But I learned a lot of lessons throughout that, man, because one, the person that I went into business with wasn't exactly transparent with me about a couple things. So that caused issues. I also didn't understand that I was selling a product that I couldn't be selling. So I got a cease and desist letter. So I almost got sued. And then on top of that, right, like I didn't understand my fulfillment and distribution. So like earlier in the podcast, when I said like your business can crash if you scale too quickly, like, dude, I was like, it was sinking in from multiple fronts. So at the time it felt like a curse, you know, because I went from, you know, making a lot to actually losing a lot of money from that process because I ended up fulfilling everything and doing everything the right way. But it's just crazy, bro, because looking back, it taught me so many different lessons, right? So many different business lessons, but so many different life lessons. Because I got very comfortable with the fact that like all this stuff that I thought was success, right? Because I got opened up to a new pool of friends, a new kind of area of social circle. I got to see like what I was going after wasn't exactly what I was really going after. I was going after the man that I'm gonna be when I have those things done ethically and done the right way.
Right.
But I wasn't like, my goal wasn't necessarily a Lambo. It's the man that I'm gonna be driving my Lambo, right? And that kind of put a couple things in perspective for me, man. But dude, that moment back in 2019 when I launched that store was a defining moment for me because it showed me what I'm capable of, you know, it showed me what I'm able to do, it showed me the possibility of like what's possible. But it also like took me on a journey of like a very humbling journey of having to pick the pieces back up after everything fell apart and then getting, you know, slowly kind of coming back and doing things. And I'm kind of at a point now where I'm like, cool, I've got several connections in different places. I've got, you know, the resources. I've got like the mental capacity of like what I learned. I've got like these different skill traits that I've picked up, these character traits. And I feel like Hormozy talks about this in a podcast, but he said like he did so many skill stacks in his life that when that opportunity came across for him to launch like his gyms the right way, he went from like 0 to like $1 million in like 12 months because of the way he stacked his skills. So it wasn't like an overnight success in the sense of like he just picked up on something and like it came together. But it was like he had been stacking so many little deposits over the span of that time that he wasn't successful, that when he did have the opportunity and things kind of lined up for him in the right way, he just accelerated his life completely. So I feel like that's kind of where I'm at right now in my life, where I'm very respectful of the skill stack that I have right now because I have a very diverse. Yeah, man. That's what I feel,
it's like
bro.
in your fingertips.
It's different. Yeah, man. It's different because it's like I have character traits, right? Or I'm sorry, skills. Like when it comes to photography, videography, content, marketing, like marketing in general, ads, paid ads, fulfillment, distribution, e-com. But for me, it's like I was lacking character traits too, of consistency, of discipline, of seeing stuff through, of visualization, of like a couple of these different things in my areas of my life where I just wasn't like as dialed in, and like the trifecta of all these things coming together, right? Of like the opportunity, meeting the skills, meeting the character traits, like it's I think they all have to come together. And if you can respect that process in anyone's journey, right, of wherever they're at, and they can see everything as a growing opportunity, it's huge, man. Because I really, like, what helped me get through that whole thing with e-com, because like I told you, my world came crashing down, is I started seeing everything like, it's not happening to me, it's happening for me. This is building a better story for me. And I've always, every single moment, man, me and him have had like some really good conversations about this, but like everything that bad that happens, bro, like I really take it in. I either journal it or I take a picture of whatever that scenario is. And I'm like, yo, this is going to be a defining moment for me to talk about in my story later. So when I'm on stage, I can reference stuff like this.
I do the same thing. I've got YouTube videos. I'll do like journals. I'll do like quarterly reports, almost basically forecasting. Like I don't have them listed. It's like I'm just talking to myself, and I like to say I speak. I forgot who says it. I think Tate says it. He talks about, because he does like hypnosis at like the highest level to himself, the way he speaks, if you've heard him speak, but he speaks about his future self. He's like, and so this is one thing that I've always done, and now I'm like being really affirmative of. It's like, so Shawn, today's problems, future Shawn is able to, conquer.
100%.
And it's like, it's just putting the expectation. I'm always, I like to say progression should be the only obsession. If you're progressing in life, doesn't matter if it's your health, wealth, love, and happiness, if that's the standard, you're doing it. But to really quick, I'm glad to have you on and you sharing all that, because I feel the same. I've been through a similar scenario, and I wanted to talk. You said something about the character of it or becoming the person, and I wanted to get your perspective on it, especially growing up in the era. Like we grew up in the era of digital marketing, guru marketing, Kyle Lopez, people of those natures, and they play a very pivotal part in our life, even network marketing. But there just seems like there is like a line of, I say, empty carve. I don't even know what necessarily to call it, but there's a lot of being revealed to the world now, as far as like
100%.
what we're attracted to versus what doesn't necessarily feel real or feel authentic.
Correct.
I feel like the sea is essentially like splitting.
Correct.
As far as us building our character and going along the path, building skill sets, actually having tangible results to the success. What have you seen in perspective? I'm not trying to like necessarily more go on a name. It's more so just from an industry, from an integral standpoint. Like, what have you seen evolve from people that you work with to people you work with to people that have progressed or people that have stayed the same? Like, what do you think? Why do you think people? I don't even necessarily know how to say it. I just want to have a conversation of like the pillars being split, because I'm sure you've seen like you. I wanted to.
I get exactly what you're saying. So I think what you're trying to say is that like people, I don't know, back in like 2014, right, when the whole internet world was fresh, you'd start to look at people like Ty or Gary or stuff like that, and like those guys have built some very incredible things, right? But it's very,
what did it create?
Right. So it's very, from my opinion, a lot of the gurus, a lot of people in this industry, it's very surface level, right? So when you talk about the split of character development versus surface level, I think the reason why Hormozy is so attractive to people is because he took the time to really like build something great. and then started doing it. So I think there has to be a healthy balance with like someone who's new getting into this, where it's like they're pouring their time into content creation because it's important to build, you know, like build in public is what me and Matt call it. Like you document your journey and people are bought in and it helps you grow your business that way.
Right.
But I think at the same time, it's like, you know, build a business, man. Build something very tangible so that the stuff that's coming out of your mouth isn't just stuff that's being kind of regurgitated. Yeah. It's stuff that you know in your core and your heart that you've gone through and you've experienced, so you can help people get through it, you know? And I think sometimes logically, we can't filter this out when someone's like, we're trying to figure if somebody's like full of shit or if they're not full of shit. Right. But I think our heart, bro, when it doesn't sit right with something or we're hearing someone speak, like it knows how to filter that out. Mm-hmm. So it's very important, you know, for us to really like understand the difference between, you know, when we're consuming information, someone who's standing in front of a car, you know, a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, or whatever, and they're posing as this kind of person. They're yeah, because it's very surface level, bro. If someone's just on their whole Instagram, if it's just them, they're doing stuff like whatever, and it's like if the content, the hook, right, the picture or the video isn't being used to tell a story of like how they got there, what it is, what lessons they learned, whatever. And I'm saying if you look at the whole of the content, like there's times where, you know, obviously you're proud to post up your body, your car, whatever, because those things you earned, right? But if the whole of the content isn't contributing to something bigger than themselves, then that's when we should start questioning what's going on. Because for me, bro, when I got into e-com, there's people that took my money and like didn't fulfill in like on what they were supposed to do. And the whole reason why I even thought to invest like my money with them in the first place was because they had the perception of what that successful person looked like. Right. And they were drowning. Like, bro, I found out later they were just drowning in like debt and stuff and problems and situations. But I think what I'm trying to say is if someone's just trying to sell you a course, right? If someone doesn't have a tangible thing that they've built or a service, a business, whatever, or even if the course isn't like fully hands-on with like either their support structure of their team or like themselves trying to give you a quality product, you should really be cognizant and careful of those people. And I think the trend that I've seen is because you have so many people that have misused the trust on the internet and have abused that for people. People are a lot more discerning with like what it is that they take on. And with everyone trying to be a content creator, it's so much harder for someone to break through unless you have the tangible stuff and the tangible knowledge and experiences, because there's so many other people trying to compete. But everyone's trying to look the same, everyone's trying to be the same, everyone's trying to do the same talking head videos. So it's like you got to ask yourself, if you're anybody trying to get into this, like what can I do differently? Mm-hmm. Because if I'm doing the same thing as everybody else, I'm gonna get the same result as everybody else. Right. And for people who don't know, like in the beginning, there's more opportunity for those people who are doing everything that everyone else is doing because it's brand new, right? If it's a new market like social media was, especially with selling courses and digital programs and stuff like that, these guys in the beginning made a fucking killing, right? Because there was no idea or perception of what this was. But now that there's so many players in the game, that opportunity has shrunk. So everyone's competing for the same market space when they don't understand that by doing something a little bit different and like going after business that people aren't even trying to get to, they'll have a lot more opportunity, man. So I think, I don't know, bro. That's
no, you hit it on the head. Like you helped me open up what I wanted to essentially lay down. Essentially, like you want to put your trust in people that have, I say, a full spectrum of like brand equity.
Correct.
You want to have that, and this is why this is so important for the voices to go ahead and get behind, because I know for a fact all of us, you and I can go ahead, and especially anybody in the VLP group, we can attest to some type of tangible result from some type of tangible client or service. Because a lot of people, what comes to mind from me, they reference something that they did that wasn't necessarily recent, or it was. Dude,
and that's why I don't really bring up in like conversations or in content or anything about the whole like e-com thing. Like we happen to bring it up in conversations because we're obviously talking about my story and whatnot.
Right.
But I'm like, I've heard this saying. I don't know if it was Andy Frisella or somebody, but they were like, you know, that guy who is like 30, 40 years old and still thinking about like high school trophy of like their football star or whatever. And I'm like, bro, I don't count my wins like that. Like I'm looking at what I'm doing now and like what's going on. Obviously those things that I've done give me some sort of belief and understanding of like what's capable. But I'm like, bro, I don't like, shit doesn't matter. Like I you know what I'm saying? Like same thing with someone's body. It's like if you worked out 2 years ago and you're still trying to bank on those results from working out 2 years ago and you're not doing anything, you're gonna be overweight.
Yeah.
You're gonna lose the body. You're gonna lose the shape, and that's why I think for me, fitness is such a good discipline for people to understand business and understand life in general, because you have to have consistency to be able to build the body and to be able to build strength and to be able to build the reps and be able to go run, to do anything, right? It's uncomfortable in the beginning. Fucking sucks.
Right. Speaking of that,
You're like, I don't want to do this.
hiking barefoot. When did that start for you?
When was that? I think that was probably like 5 months ago.
Yeah.
But you know what's crazy, bro? Is like I my brain has this way of like making like anything that I'm going through kind of like understood into a lesson, right? Which is why I'm excited to teach other people, because I think I have like that gift inside me. It's been a God-given gift. But it's like my friend Kaylee, who's from South Africa, right? She started like going down barefoot when we were like coming down from Camelback Mountain, and I'm like,
What the?
yeah, dude. And she's like blonde, like I'm like, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. So that's like that lesson was like, okay, if you see it, you can believe it, right? So for me, I'm like, okay, Kaylee can do it, I can do it. So I started like, I kind of went down the first time just barefoot, and I was like, well, fuck it. Like, let me try to go up and down.
Right.
Let me go try to hike another mountain, And I think that's kind of how it starts. And I think that's why it's so important for people like us who do have a genuine voice, right? Something that they genuinely want to share with the world, to share their thoughts, because, bro, like, our story can be someone else's belief building block for them. They can look at us and be like, okay, if Jesus can do it, I can do it, and I can even do it further than Jesus.
Right.
And I think that's what excites me with like community and friends, man, is like everyone that I see, like I know you interviewed Carlos and a couple other people on the podcast. Like when I see people doing well and striving and going for more, I'm like, that's awesome, man, because it helps build my own belief system in me. Because at the end of the day, man, like I don't think we're all different people and different personalities, but we all have this God-given like ability to be able to do something, right? So for me, I'm like, if I look at someone else doing something, I'm like, I can do it.
Right.
And I think that's something that I want to instill, especially like I came from the inner city, right? And I want people to just understand that. Like, it's like, doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter any of that. Like, you can do it. If someone else like you can do it, you can do it. And we're all human. So that means that if Albert Einstein was able to create the theory of relativity, like I haven't dove into those books, but I can probably do it if I wanted to really do it.
Exactly. It's a concept. Like right now, like every time I'm like walking around or I'm in some type of facility or I see something built or if I'm in an airport, I'm like, somebody really had this in their mind and they were like, we're about to put somebody in a tube and then fly,
bro. And think about how crazy that was back then.
That's bananas.
For someone to be like, I'm going to put people on this flying machine, take them across, like, let alone the world, bro, or like the country, but like, I'm going to take them like 200 feet in the air. People were like, you're fucking crazy. Because everyone was like, oh, I get around in bikes or in cars or whatever, but no one thought like flight was a thing until, that foundation or that prerequisite was kind of set. And they're like, oh man, the Wright brothers were able to get people up this high.
Right.
Let's get people even higher. Okay, let's get people across the country. Let's get people across the world.
I like to say, I like to frame things in my mind like you just yet to discover the chess move. Like in chess, there's infinite amounts of plays that you can play. I play at least a couple. I play that in between while I work. I was sitting all the time, and so like 3-minute games, 5-minute games, chess.com. But and every time you play the game, I don't know if you guys play chess now, but if you play, you can look on the website to see where you went wrong, or they'll give recommendations as far as like, okay, you were 80% accurate, that person was 64% accurate. It's not always. That's just the parameters. Obviously, there's more ways to play, or there's certain moves that you could have made that they necessarily don't agree with. But overall, that same premise is how I see the game of life, or the ability to create something. It's I can't do this. No, I promise you. This is the beautiful thing about equity on the internet. As far as putting our stories out there, our stories are out there. They're gonna see somebody they're gonna see people that look just like us, and have the ability to make a decision. Like, oh, okay, Shawn and Jesus, they went from point A to point Z. And I'm in like a similar boat, maybe I can go ahead and do that. Or I've yet to, like, we got to start putting it out there. I've yet to discover the move on the board to essentially execute on what you want to do, as opposed to can I do it? Because like that's very diminishing voice in our heads that we all have to some degree, but like you got to change like how that voice comes out of your head. And I think that's where it starts, as far as like you just haven't thought of it. We have, at some point, we didn't necessarily know that sales was going to be a big component of our lives because we did network marketing. Because for me, that was the biggest thing.
Oh, it's huge, bro.
It was terrifying. Like I got videos now, I'll be able to clip this in here, of me doing events in my apartment or people's backyards, and my first time speaking. Like I didn't know how to speak when I was in high school, but when I brought the most people to my first event, you know, selling the healthy energy drinks, upline was like, hey, you should speak. And I was like, you just told me I had to bring the people, and it was terrifying.
So my whole thing with network marketing is like, I don't think it's a sustainable business model in the sense of if you're looking to have that be your wealth builder. But bro, that is such a good character builder.
Mentality.
Like network marketing, especially for me learning it at 17 years old and that being like that defining moment in my life. Fuck, man, it set up such a good foundation in my life because it taught me like personal development. It taught me speaking and like social skills. It taught me so many things, bro, that have like been defining factors in how I've been able to operate in this world. So I think if anyone's trying to like get into like, let's say network marketing, they should just get into like the idea of like, hey, this isn't going to make me a ton of money. Can it? Yeah, absolutely. There's people like, you know, whatever.
I didn't make tons, but
I didn't.
I'm grateful for it.
100%. But for me, that was the best $500 I ever spent because I'm like, bro.
Builder pack.
Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly. But it's just wild, man. Because like I said, life ends up coming full circle where it's like the CEO of this company that we're affiliated with comes in here. We're having a conversation and like there's a mutual respect, you know, because we just kind of see each other where we're at. And it's just interesting, man, because I think what I'm really grateful for is I've been able to be placed in rooms with some very like powerful and important people. And it's making me understand that like I'm that too. And I think anyone can be that too. You know, it's not just that I'm that too. It's you're that too. Jeremiah is that too.
Right.
It's just that belief, right? That we are. Like, I think belief is the foundation of success, bro. If you cannot believe that you're going to be successful, you will never be successful.
100%.
And I think once you plant that foundation, you plant that seed, I think it just opens up so many different opportunities for you because now you see the world different. You look at everything as an opportunity instead of a challenge, right? Where you're like, oh man, I'm getting beat up. I'm getting this is happening. But like, no, this is an opportunity for me to get better. It's an opportunity for me to grow, right? And I think when we start looking at the world through that growth-oriented mindset, it changes the game.
Progression is only obsession. That's literally where my mental is. Like, once you understand that equation, like you said, every time you can go into a room of power people, like living at the Optima, like I've been able to. Bro, yeah, it's amazing. And the main reason I wanted to live there is the fact of like I wanted to know who lived there, as far as like who could I associate with. And so, like I just went to dinner, Roka. I forgot the restaurant. I think it's Roka. I forgot exactly.
Sushi Roka or whatever.
Yeah, Sushi Roka. But the table, they were just talking about craziness. My buddy Jonathan, shout out Jonathan, he had invited me to come, but he's just so ungodly amount of just filled with like abundant relationships where they're talking about, oh, I work with this person, Tony Robbins, and this guy and that guy, and you're just soaking it in. All I can think in my head, you know, speaking when I feel like I can, but I want to understand who I'm with, but it's more so like if I hang around these people long enough, you are who you become. You are who you surround yourself with. It's
100%.
It's just a higher net worth of a room, or a higher grade or integrity of a room. Let's just say if you're going to measure it by, you know, income, or you know, quality of conversation. Like one guy, I forgot his name. He's killing me. I want to be able to quote him by name, but he asked the table. He said, "How can I help? How can we all, or how can I be of service to you today?" And he went around the table one by one. I was like,
that's cool, man. That's a different kind of conversation too.
Like I've never heard anybody ask that question. It's always a take conversation, but even then it was just, I got introduced to a different frame of mind, or different frame of just.
You know what's something that I've thought about, man? Even like I was driving over here this morning, is there's this saying like ignorance is bliss, right? And I think it is, but once you become aware of something, you can't unsee it.
Yep.
And I think that's why, like, one of my favorite movies is The Matrix, right? And it's because when Neo takes the pill, he wakes up and he can't go back in anymore the same way.
Right.
You can't go into that ignorance anymore because you're aware.
Right.
And I think when it comes to, you know, that conversation, once you're aware of that question, you're like, oh shit, this is a question that I should probably ask when I'm at dinner with people, you know, because it'll like open up different things. So it's like, dude, I just think it's so beautiful when you understand that, like, I don't know, there is a lot of, I think, ignorance in the world and I mean ignorance in the sense of like unawareness, right? So people are unaware of their actions they're taking. They're unaware of like the stuff they're getting into. They're unaware of those things, and they're seeking a feeling, right? They're seeking a feeling from those things, whether it's drugs, alcohol, you know,
some type of escape.
People, some sort of escape, right? Right. But I think when people become aware that there's different options, right, of having a strong vision, a strong foundation of, you know, wanting to be a better man, better woman, whatever, it just opens up you to understand that thing you're looking for is like inside you. 100%. It's not outside of you.
100%.
And I think that's the thing that I think, I don't know, bro. I think like our goal as people is to bring them back home. And what I mean by back home is I like to bring them back to where they're supposed to be, you know, because I think a lot of people are off the track, and it could be happening because of their environment, you know, their parents or whatever. But I think when we're, by us being us, by us setting the example, when we help lead people back home, back to their center. Yep. And I think that's one of the most powerful forms of influence is instead of trying to get you to do something, you get you to do something.
100%. I made a tweet because I've been tweeting just to practice putting thoughts out there, especially with Elon, you know, capturing of that acquisition. But I said something. Let me read this really quick. And like I said, I'll be more than down to go ahead and just like I think this would be just great report card just amongst ourselves. Just another way to hold each other accountable. That's how I see this content game. Like be able to use this as like a compass to hold ourselves accountable on the things that we're gonna do and actually act on what we're gonna say. Like that's why I'm so excited about it. Because like speaking on it, like you were talking about community, like I did this as far as voice production. This is how it's so crazy. Like I remember when we all got connected, and I connected you with Gabby.
Oh yeah. Shout out to Gabby. She's cool as shit, man.
Yeah, she's a great gal. But she helped me host the first Miss Manual podcast, and then that's where it became a light because I found a bunch of people doing what was essentially an issue of feeling like they're on an island, and then her and like maybe 10, 12 other girls that were in like aviation or, you know, mechanic, you know, actual ASC mechanics or, you know, self-taught. And it just created this big storm of just a bunch of people a group of people that were willing to share and show their process. And then it was attracting people that either wanted to do it or didn't necessarily understand that it existed. And it created a storm of thousands of people wanting to tune into the podcast, as far as the brand, as far as what it represented as opposed to what it was. But really quick, so I say that's what I said. I forgot exactly what I was saying, but it'll probably come up. But I said, based off of what you were saying, I said, I have to push to the extreme every day. The more I hear excuses, my obsession with presenting a solution grows. The more you procrastinate, the more I have to create. I can't control anyone, going to your point, but I can display what is possible. In that process, all I can do is hope you make a decision. So as long as we can just display, you know, our process, it's going to get people to make a decision. Right?
One thing I want people to be aware about when you're walking your walk, right? And you're being you, is that your relentlessness to go after what it is that you want is going to provoke some people. Yeah. It's going to anger some people. And not because you're intending to, but what I found with like my 75 hard journey is that by me committing myself to a different standard of like caliber of holding myself to a higher standard in general across the board, it reveals what people are not doing.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that I want people to be aware about is that if you get some sort of pushback, you know, understand that it's healthy. It's not a bad thing. Some people just have a different way of coping with that in the beginning, right? So if someone hasn't been working out, not taking care of their body, bro, whatever, you show up, you know, transformed, it kind of like for the right person, it will motivate them. Right. But because people are so stuck in their fears and their whatever, it exposes people. And I think that's why people sometimes, you know, get a little bit of pushback, especially when like, you know, when you tell your family I'm starting a business, when you tell them I'm doing this, or I met this person, or I'm whatever. Yeah. Right. It's like, because sometimes people can't see the picture of how they're going to do it, they're going to try to tear your stuff down. And that's what I found even with people that are closest to me, you know? But it's like, if you can understand that shift, and like I had somebody else tell me that because I was a little bit upset about like why people were acting the way that they were acting, you know, like the little, you know, backhanded comments or whatever. Like somebody helped me understand that, and it really helped me process what was going on.
Like you were saying earlier, like somebody might be angry or somebody might be fearful. It's not necessarily personal. It's a belief. It's a concept of what they feel like is what's best, but no one can possibly know what's best for you besides you. And then that's where the line comes in. That's why this is so, because my brother, I'll give you an example. So my brother just had a daughter in August, so she'll be August 5th or August 6th. But I always say to him, is like, it's up to us. Because like him and I are out of like our mom, she had two sisters, and then they were raised by her mom, but that wasn't necessarily in her life 100%. But we were one of the first. Well, he's still with his high school sweetheart, and then they both have the mother and father and the whole. But all I say to him is like, it's up to us now because we're all close in age. It's me, my brother, my sister. My sister is 17 this year. Should be 18 this year, currently 17. He's 24, about to be 25, and I'm 27. And so we're still close in age where we now get to set the trajectory.
The standard, bro. You set the standard.
Exactly.
And that's why, like, if you're very conscious of that, bro, like you're like, for anyone listening, your family might not have wealth. Your family might come from nothing. Your family might come from broken relationships, from unhealthy habits, from so many terrible things. But you have the choice to change your trajectory of your family, right? To set the standard and to say it ends with me, or it starts with me, right? Wealth starts with me,
right?
And I think that's one of the most beautiful things, bro. Is like, for me, I'm like, our family across the board is like, you know, pretty good about like wanting more out of life, but like, I'm gonna set the trajectory for like what this conversation looks like.
100%.
You know, so my kids and then my nieces and nephews are gonna look at a different caliber of life because of the way that I've shifted that conversation. And I also want them to understand, though, that it's not just about the things, the objects, the places, the locations, none of that. It's about the experiences and who you are as a person, and like how good you can sleep with the decisions you've made at night, right? Because I don't know, bro. I've seen some stuff, just like I told you, being exposed to the levels of like what I've been exposed to.
What you thought was one thing, and all of a sudden it had you like this. You're like, wait a minute.
Because, bro, look, coming from the hood, you're like, yo, how can someone like that not be happy?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it's like, that is such a broken way of thinking, because it's like, everyone's a human. Everyone has their shit they're carrying around with them, but these people also have problems, right? But no matter where you go, you got to take you with you, right? So if you're not okay with you while you're here and have nothing, there's going to be a bigger hole when you get over here. And that's what I started seeing, is I'm like, oh shit, there's a lot of unhealed people over on this side who are covering up their insecurities or whatever's going on with like material possessions, but into the outside world, it seems like they're completely okay. But when you actually get to see the behaviors and like the decisions they make and like have conversations with them, it starts to reveal like what's going on.
You just gave me a fire idea. People need to decrease the relationship with perception and then increase the relationship with transparency.
Yeah, bro, 100%.
Like, if people can do that, if they can just understand, like, I don't know, it just makes so much sense. Like, because like we fell in love to an extent with the perception. We got from what we needed from the perception, grew as individuals, you know, skill sets, traits, character, who we want to be as a person.
Yep.
And now it's so important for us. Our moral compass is built on transparency as individuals and who's around us.
Well, listen, bro, I think it's good to use that stuff as motivation. Yeah. Like, do I want a fucking supercar, Lamborghinis, like all that stuff? Fuck
sure.
Yeah. 100%. But at the same time, it's like, it's just about understanding like what it is that you really want when you're there. Like, if more people, I think, can be aware of that in the beginning, of like, who is it that I'm going to be when I have those things, or who is it that I want to be when I have those things, you're happy along the way and you're happy when you get there. Because so many people sacrifice. You know, we got the opportunity to film for a very wealthy family. You know, went to go film for one of their retirement homes. I talked to the wife of the guy, right? This guy, he invented one of the first chips, like chip something manufacturing, whatever. Dude's like fucking loaded, right? I got a chance to talk to his wife, and his wife was like, yeah, he really regrets that he wasn't there for like the kids. He really regrets that he didn't do this. He really, like, she was pouring this stuff out to me, right? And I'm like, it just made me really consider. I'm like, man, so many people sacrifice along the way, right? And like kill themselves, and they're like, no, I can't have this, or I shouldn't do that, or whatever. I've got to work, right? But if you're more conscious of everything from the beginning, and even like those times where you have things that fuck up in your life, you find joy in them, or you have also, you're like, okay, I want to spend time with my kids and my family and my relationship as I'm building, right? And understand that like this thing that I'm after might not be exactly what it is that I want, right? So it's like, it was just a game changer for me, man.
You pondered on that whole day, because I would have. It'd have been just
bro. I was just like blown away. I'm like, yo, this person's telling me like I'm getting such a beautiful perspective on life right now. I had already known that, but it was being reconfirmed. Yeah. And that was the beautiful thing about that, because I'm like I told you, man, I've seen people that go all the way over here, sacrifice everything along the way, and they ask themselves like, was it even worth it? You know, and that question fucks with them a lot. You know,
100%.
But if you can, like I said, you know, be conscious of the way that you're building, right, and understand that, like, hey, well, maybe me spending some more time with my spouse is probably a good thing as I'm fucking building, right? And then I'm still going to get there, but am I going to be happier along the way? And, you know, if you got to grind, put your head down and fucking grind.
Allow your purpose to evolve, because it's going to change. I'm sure we're different and changed from 5 years ago to now.
Yeah, man.
It's grown bigger and it's become more, and some things might have changed, and that's okay. But you got to allow yourself to, like you said, see the gray. You got to be able to evolve who you were a year ago versus, you know, even to this day. And
dude, I think one of the most beautiful things too is that when you can start seeing things not from like a how much can I get done in this 24-hour time period, but how effective can I be in this 6-hour period that I'm working, 7-hour period that I'm working, it's a game changer, bro, because it goes from you working hard to you working smart. And I think me growing up, my dad always worked really hard, right? Put in overtime, made sure that we had everything that we needed, right? But I would say that he didn't work very smart in the sense of like understanding wealth accumulation, building all that stuff, so that when he did get to the point where he retired, he didn't really have himself financially set up for him to be comfortable. Now, I fucking love my dad, and he sacrificed everything for me.
That's
so
a building block.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure that I'm his retirement policy, right, in that sense. But it's like, it's just about being very cognizant of that from the beginning, right, where you're like, okay, let me work smart and work hard. Because if I work smart and understand how I'm building these things out, I can probably get there without killing myself along the way. Right. And I found the more that you work on you, the more that everything else grows. So me doing 75 hard, me working on my habits, me working on my communication skills, my leadership skills, my sales skills, whatever, it pours into every other area of my life, man. So whether it's like relationships, you know, whether it's, you know, family, whether it's whatever, like I'm a more effective human being, which means I can get more done in less time and get more of a result than someone who's trying to kill themselves, trying to work fucking 18 hours a day.
Right.
You know? But you got to respect wherever season, like you said, you're at, because there's times where you do have to do that.
Different seasons for different reasons. Like life is seasonal. That's how I address everything that I do, to keep that mentality of just being agile. Because like things are seasonal. Relationships are seasonal. And there's only thing that isn't forever. The two things aren't forever. Well, I forgot exactly the same, but it was like, I forgot exactly what it is, but there's very few things that are forever. And so if you can keep that mentality, you can be prepared for the things that come into your life that are great as well as that are bad. You know, when you're angry, you can appreciate when you're angry. You can also appreciate when you're sad. Like I love when I'm like, I like to say transfer energy. Energy doesn't go anywhere. It just transfers. Correct. And so if you can learn how to transfer the energy as opposed to, you know, internalizing it, then you can essentially embrace anything that comes your way, regardless of how big it might come. And so going back to your point, I want to end with this on my side of things, because I feel like we can go forever.
Oh, honestly. We can, bro. It's already been an hour. Wow.
We've been going. Like, honestly, I'm like, yo, we got to do this at least once a month, something like that, once a quarter. It'd be just fire, straight fire.
Yeah, man.
Because we haven't even talked about business in terms of, because like one thing, well, before I say that, going back to the family thing you had brought up in terms of, you know, where your dad was versus you are as far as where you at. I tell my brother and sister all the time, we either can be a duplicate or we can be the next better version. And what do our parents and our family want? They want us to be the next better version. And it's not to diminish who they are.
Bro, it's to build on what the foundation they've given you.
Exactly. And I think that's just important to say, because like a lot of people don't necessarily get that message. Somebody might hear this and they're like, well, I've never thought about it like that. I always was told that I needed to do this, and meanwhile, while they're being told something they didn't want to hear, they're being spiteful, and all of a sudden, that's the paradigm shift where they're like, boom. But going into it, to end everything, well, where could people find you as far as like Jesus' journey, as far as everything? Where
dude, it's pretty much similar across the board. Just Jesus Creates, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, you know, YouTube that's coming soon too. It's all going to be Jesus Creates.
Jesus Creates, most definitely. Because you've done a lot of great work. I remember, like I said, when 2018 when you made that video, that's when I was just moving back out here, because I had like a crazy, you know, I had crazy business. We were coming out here to celebrate. We got that Corvette off of Turo, and then that was when I was moving back out here, because I was a year. My mom had passed away, and then I moved in with my business partner to come out here. But so much has happened into that point, and so much has evolved. But the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, not this time, but next time, just the importance of our attributes. Again, going back to, I guess, the basis of it, voice production, the media side of things, kind of more so speaking to the business owners that are still kind of underplaying, and they not understanding why our professions are so important. Not for us, it's bigger than us. It's more so to keep America going and great. And that's what I want to talk about.
Dude, so what I will say as a little mini preview to that is like, as a creator,
Yep.
whether you are creating a business, whether you're creating stuff for clients, whether you're advertising, whatever,
Yep.
you have one of the most powerful skills that is needed in the marketplace. No matter what, like as a creator, right? People need you to grow. And I think if people can rephrase that conversation in their head where they can see the value of the service they provide, like every fucking company needs content, right?
100%.
So if you're a content creator, you have a very powerful gift in front of you. You've got to understand how to use it, right? The little intricacies of like how to move things around.
Right.
But if you can understand the importance of what it is that you have on your hands, like you have a literal jewel mine in front of
100%.
you. Like it's just about how much you want to figure that out for yourself. Because as creators, we are the future. We are what creates the future. You know, we take what's going on in the present, but we create the future.
100%. And on the kind of piggyback off that to end on my side of things, it's a question for business owners that might be watching. You have a service, you have a product, and 19 other people have that same product or service. The question you have to ask yourself, how does a consumer decide to choose you versus the next 19 competitors that do exactly what you do?
So to add to that, and I know we're getting kind of long here, but
No, you're fine, you're fine.
So my e-com store, I found out later that my competitor, the one that sent me the C&D, only made, I think, 8 to 10 grand that month. So I 5x'd the amount of sales, and I was charging 3 times the amount that they were charging for their product.
Fire.
And that was branding. That was exactly what you just talked about, like how I was able to differentiate myself. Like I had several different what I call value SKUs, like MJ DeMarco talks about this in his book. But I had things that differentiated me so much that people were like, I'm willing to pay 3 times more for the same product. And then, you know, obviously it was even more sales because of the way that it was branded, delivered. And like, dude, that business could have really taken off, but it wasn't in my destiny to make that happen that way. I was meant to learn the lesson through that, because what I want people to understand is that if something bad's happening to you, right, whether breakup, you know, whether it's a business partnership fallout, whether it's whatever, like it's like, I can't remember who said this, but it's like God's rejection or like man's rejection is God's protection, right? So if you understand that, you're like, yo, that situation, for example, right? I lost money, and like I told you in that, thinking I made, you know, 50, it was 51. I thought I made 51 and then like lost a lot of money. But if I would have taken that to 3 mil, 4 mil, 5 mil, which I think is what I could have done, given the trajectory of me not knowing what the fuck I was doing when I was doing it, bro, that like I could have, instead of having a small problem in my hands, I could have had a fucking 300, 500,000, $1 million problem on my hands.
Yeah.
And like you're being, no matter what you're going through, you're being protected, because there's things, and I know it's hard for people to understand this, there's things that you're not ready for. And if your character isn't ready for that, it'll fucking destroy you.
I was a building block, not the destination.
100%, bro. And I think that's what, so think about this, so to kind of end this off, right?
Yeah.
You get everything you want, bro. You get the house, you get the car, you get the beautiful spouse, you get the dream, you know, everything. But you're not the man who can keep it, right? Like your character cannot keep those things. So while it's going to be nice for you to have them for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months,
Yep.
how shitty is it going to feel for that to be taken away from you?
Yep.
And then you feel like you lost everything. And because you feel like you lost everything, and you don't understand that everything's inside you, you know, shit can happen. You know what I'm saying? Like people, that's why people, I think, take their lives.
100%.
You know? So it's like, if people can just become very cognizant of that in the beginning and be like, yo, everything is inside me. You know, everything outside me is a plus, but everything's inside me. Once I figure out the inside, the outside gets a lot better, bro.
100%.
A lot better. So
Guys, get ready. Go ahead and follow Jesus Creates. It's about to get real steamy in 2023.
hey, appreciate you, man.
Of course,
Let's get
bro.
it. Yes, sir.
Most definitely.